The Japanese billionaire watched in silence, until the nanny called him to dance in Japanese. James Anderson gripped the crystal glass so tightly his knuckles turned white. His 5-year-old granddaughter, Lily, darted among the guests with a smile he rarely saw on the child's face. The party was taking place in the event hall of the Grand Plaza Hotel in New York City and had cost a fortune, but nothing mattered if it brought a little joy to the child who had already suffered so much at such a young age. He observed every detail, every movement, trying to imprint that rare moment of happiness in his memory. That's when his eyes fixed on the nanny. Emily, a 28-year-old woman who had worked for him for only 3 months, was dancing with Lily in the center of the hall. The music was lively, but something about that woman's posture bothered him in a way he couldn't explain. She moved with natural grace, but there was tension in her shoulders, as if every gesture was carefully calculated. Suddenly, Emily left Lily with one of the other children and began walking toward him. James felt his heart race without understanding why. "Let's dance, Mr. Anderson," she said, extending her hand to him with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The world stopped. That voice, that accent, the way she pronounced each syllable in perfect Japanese. It was impossible. James felt his legs weaken and had to lean on the table. His wife, Catherine, seated beside him, touched his arm with concern. "James, are you all right?" she asked in English, with the New Yorker accent she'd never lost, even after 40 years of marriage to him. But he couldn't respond. His eyes were fixed on Emily, who still held her hand extended, waiting. 20 years. It had been exactly 20 years since he'd heard that same vocal timbre, that same way of speaking Japanese. His daughter Naomi had been just 18 when she disappeared, and since then, every day had been a silent torture, a wound that never healed. "Please, Mr. Anderson," insisted Emily, still in Japanese. "It would be an honor to dance with you at little Lily's party." Catherine looked at her husband with a confused expression. She knew some Japanese after all these years, but not enough to understand complex conversations. James finally stood up, his legs still trembling, and accepted Emily's hand. When their fingers touched, he felt a shock run through his body. Her hands were ice-cold and shaking slightly. The dance floor was crowded, but for James, everything became a blur. He could only focus on Emily's face, searching for signs, answers, anything that could explain that overwhelming sense of recognition. She had blonde hair tied in a ponytail, fair skin, green eyes. Nothing that physically resembled his daughter. But that voice, dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Emily began to whisper as they danced, so softly only he could hear. It was an old Japanese lullaby, one his grandmother used to sing to him when he was a child. A song he, in turn, had sung to Naomi when she couldn't sleep. A song he had never taught anyone else, not even Catherine. Tears began streaming down James's face, silent, uncontrollable. "How do you—" he tried to ask, but his voice failed. Emily maintained her professional smile, but her green eyes filled with tears too. She squeezed his hand gently, as if wanting to convey some message through the touch. Across the hall, Catherine watched everything with growing suspicion. She had known her husband long enough to recognize when something was deeply wrong. The music ended, and Emily quickly stepped away, giving a small bow before returning to Lily's side. But in her hurried movement, something fell from her pocket and slid across the polished floor. James saw it and bent down to pick it up. It was an origami paper crane, folded with delicate precision. His hands trembled as he recognized that work. The slightly asymmetrical fold of the wings, exactly the way Naomi always made them. She had never been able to make perfectly symmetrical paper cranes, which always frustrated her as a child. Catherine came to his side, gripping his arm tightly. "James, what's going on? You're pale." "Nothing," he lied, closing his hand around the paper crane. "I just felt a bit dizzy. Must be the heat." But Catherine knew this man very well. They had built a life together since James arrived in the United States at 25, fleeing the suffocating expectations of his family in Japan. She had helped him open the first Japanese restaurant, then the import network, and finally the business empire he ran today. They had survived together through the tragedy of losing the daughter they had raised as their own. She knew when he was lying. "Let's go home," she said firmly. "This party has lasted long enough." James agreed, but his eyes continued to follow Emily across the hall. The young woman was now playing with Lily near the dessert table, but he noticed she was also discreetly watching him. There was something in that exchange of glances, a silent communication that left him even more unsettled. Lily came running up to him, her pink dress twirling. "Grandpa, you're not leaving yet, are you? Em said there's going to be cake time." James knelt before his granddaughter, stroking the girl's face. Lily had the dark eyes of her mother, Naomi, but her hair was light brown like her father's. Sarah, Lily's mother, had married an American she met in college. They were driving on the road when the accident happened. Lily was just 2 years old and had been home with her other grandmother. Since then, the girl had lived with James and Catherine, but she rarely smiled, rarely spoke, until Emily arrived. "Of course we'll stay for the cake, my flower," he said, forcing a smile. "It's your birthday, after all." Lily hugged her grandfather and ran back to Emily. James kept watching the two of them. Over the past 3 months, since Emily started working as a nanny, Lily had completely changed. The girl who used to spend hours silently in her room now ran, played and laughed. Emily had a special gift with children, or so he had thought until that evening. The party continued for 2 more hours. James tried to maintain his composure, talking with guests, mostly business people and acquaintances, from the social circle Catherine cultivated. But his mind was elsewhere, always returning to that paper crane, now tucked inside his jacket pocket. When they finally returned to the penthouse in Upper East Side, it was past midnight. Lily was sleeping in the car, in Emily's arms. The driver, Mr. Thomas, a 60-year-old man who had worked for the family for over a decade, helped bring in the party things. Emily carried Lily to her room and James followed her. He stood in the doorway, watching as Emily carefully put the girl to bed, removing her shoes, adjusting the blanket. There was so much tenderness in those gestures, an affection that went beyond professional care. Emily was humming softly, a melody James recognized. It was another Japanese song, one he used to sing to Naomi during stormy nights when she was afraid of thunder. "We need to talk," he said in Japanese when Emily came out of the room and closed the door slowly. She stopped in the hallway, her back to him. Her shoulders were tense, and James could see her taking deep breaths, trying to control herself. "Tomorrow, Mr. Anderson," she replied, also in Japanese. "I'm very tired tonight." "Now," he insisted, his voice firmer. Lily turned slowly. Her face was pale, with tears silently streaming down her cheeks. James felt his heart tighten. There was so much pain in those green eyes, so much contained suffering. "Please," she whispered, switching back to English. "Not tonight. I promise we'll talk, but not today. I can't right now." Catherine appeared in the hallway, already in her robe. "James, let the girl rest. Lily, go to your room. It's past everyone's bedtime." James looked at his wife, then at Lily. The young woman took advantage of the interruption and practically ran to her room on the other side of the penthouse. Catherine stared at her husband with an expression that mixed concern and suspicion. "Let's talk, the two of us," she said, taking his arm and leading him to their bedroom. As soon as they closed the door, Catherine crossed her arms. "What's going on, James? And don't give me that story about the heat. I saw how you looked at that girl. I saw how she looked at you. What was that on the dance floor?" James sat on the bed, tired. He took the paper crane from his pocket and stared at it, twirling the delicate paper between his fingers. "She spoke to me in Japanese," he said, his voice low. Perfect Japanese, with a Kyoto accent, and she sang a song that only Naomi and I knew. Catherine approached, taking the origami from his hands. "And this? Where did it come from?" "It fell from her pocket. It's the way Naomi used to make them. Exactly the same way." The silence that settled in the room was heavy. Catherine sat beside her husband, holding his hand. "James, we've been through this before, remember? 10 years ago when that woman showed up claiming to have news about Naomi. And 5 years before that, when another scammer tried to trick us. You can't let yourself be carried away every time someone mentions our daughter." "I know," he admitted, his voice breaking. "But Catherine, her voice, it was like hearing Naomi again. And that song." "Anyone can learn Japanese," said Catherine, trying to be rational despite the lump in her throat. "Anyone can do research about us, about our family. We're public figures, James. The information is all out there if someone looks hard enough." She was right, and James knew it. But something inside him, an intuition he couldn't explain, told him that this time was different. There was something in Lily's eyes, in the way she looked at Emily, in how her hands trembled when they danced. "I'll investigate," said Catherine, determined. "I'll find out everything about this Lily. Where she came from, who her parents are, where she studied, everything. And if I find out she's trying to trick us, I'll send her away immediately." "No," James said too quickly, and saw Catherine's expression harden. "What I meant is—" Not hastily. "Emily is doing so well with her. For the first time since Sarah and David left, our granddaughter is truly happy. We can't just take that away from her without being sure." Catherine took a deep breath, visibly restraining herself. "All right, but I'll investigate anyway. And if I find anything suspicious, she's out of this house, no matter how much Emily likes her." That night, James barely slept. He lay staring at the ceiling, mentally replaying every detail of the party, every word Lily had said, every gesture. At 3 in the morning, he got up and went to the study. He opened the wall safe and took out a box he hadn't opened in years. Inside were all the memories of Naomi. Childhood photos, drawings she made, birthday cards, and at the bottom, wrapped in tissue paper, he found what he was looking for. A paper crane yellowed with time that Naomi had made for him on the day she turned 15. James placed the 2 origamis side by side under the lamplight. They were identical, the same asymmetrical fold in the wings, the same small imperfection in the neck. Even the size of the paper used was exactly the same. His hands began to tremble so much that he had to sit down. In the following days, the household routine seemed normal to everyone except James. He watched Emily constantly, noticing small details he hadn't seen before. The way she tilted her head when concentrating, identical to Naomi's manner. How she bit her lower lip when thoughtful. The delicate way she held her teacup. Emily in turn seemed to avoid him. She always found an excuse to leave the room when he entered, or busied herself intensely with Lily when he approached. But James sometimes caught her looking at him when she thought she wasn't being observed, and in those moments, he saw so much sadness in those green eyes that he felt a physical pain in his chest. Catherine kept her word and began investigating. She hired a private investigator, Michael, a former detective who now worked independently. 3 days after the party, Michael appeared at the penthouse with a preliminary report. Emily Wilson Harris. He read from his notes, sitting in the living room with Catherine and James. 28 years old, born in Poughkeepsie. Normal school records until 18, when she apparently dropped out. This is where it gets interesting. Between 18 and 23, there are practically no records of her. No formal employment, no college enrollment, nothing. "And then?" asked Catherine, tense. "At 23, she appears working as a caregiver at a rehabilitation clinic in upstate New York. She stayed there for 3 years. After that, she worked at a retirement home in Lake Placid for 2 years. And then, 4 months ago, she moved to New York City and started working for you." James leaned forward. "What kind of rehabilitation did this clinic offer?" "Chemical dependency, mainly," Michael replied, "but also treatment for severe depression and other psychological issues. It's an expensive, discreet clinic. Primarily serves upper-class families who want to keep things secret." James's heart raced. Naomi had started using drugs at 16, after getting involved with the wrong crowd at school. He and Catherine had tried everything: therapy, hospitalization, conversations. For a while it seemed she was improving, but then, shortly after turning 18, Naomi simply disappeared. She left a note saying she needed to find her place in the world, that she didn't belong to that family. It was only years later that James discovered the truth Naomi hadn't known. She had been adopted. Catherine couldn't have children, and when they saw that baby at the orphanage, with eyes that seemed to see beyond, they knew she was their daughter. They raised Naomi as if she were their own, loved her with every fiber of their being. But the girl eventually discovered by accident when she was 17, after finding the adoption papers in a drawer. They never spoke openly about it. Naomi never confronted her parents, and they never admitted they knew she knew. It was a silent secret that poisoned the relationship until the girl ran away. "I want the names of all patients who were at that clinic during the period Emily worked there," said James. Michael hesitated. "Mr. Anderson, that's confidential. I won't be able to access those records legally." "Then get them illegally," said Catherine, surprising both her husband and the investigator. "I need to know if my daughter was at that clinic. I need to know if Emily knew her." Michael nodded slowly. "I'll see what I can do, but this might take a few weeks." After the investigator left, Catherine turned to James. "Do you think Naomi might have been at that clinic? All these years we thought she could be—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "We don't know anything yet," said James, but his voice lacked conviction. That afternoon, while returning from a business meeting, James decided to stop at the Japanese bookstore in downtown New York. There had been one there since the 80s, mainly frequented by the city's Japanese community. The owner, Mr. Yamamoto, was a 70-year-old man who had known James since he arrived in the United States. "Anderson-san," the old man greeted in Japanese. "It's been a while since you've been here." "I'm looking for something specific," said James. "That collection of traditional lullabies. Do you still have it?" Of course," Yamamoto went to a shelf in the back. "But it's a rare book, you know. I don't sell many. Most of the third generation doesn't speak Japanese well anymore." James flipped through the book when Yamamoto brought it to him. He found the song that Emily had sung at the party. It was truly obscure, from a specific region of Japan. Hard for anyone to know it unless they had learned it directly from someone from that region. "Yamamoto-san," he said, choosing his words carefully, "do you know any Japanese language schools in the city that teach this kind of deeper cultural content?" The old man thought for a moment. "There's that private teacher, Professor Tanaka. She's very traditional, teaches not only the language but the whole culture, music, tea ceremony, calligraphy, but she's very expensive, few can afford it." James wrote down the name and phone number that Yamamoto gave him. When he got home, he found Emily in the kitchen with Lily, making cookies. The scene was so domestic, so normal, that for a moment he almost forgot all the suspicions. "Grandpa!" Lily ran to him with her hands full of dough. "Look, Em is teaching me how to make cookies." James lifted his granddaughter into his arms, not minding the mess. "How nice, my flower. And what shape are these cookies?" "Paper cranes," said Lily excitedly. "Em said they're lucky birds that bring good things to us." James looked at Emily over Lily's head. The young woman was standing by the stove, her hands still dirty with flour, and there were tears silently streaming down her face. She quickly wiped them with the back of her hand, leaving a white streak on her cheek. "Lily, sweetie," said Emily, her voice a bit hoarse, "why don't you go wash your hands, and then we'll watch that cartoon you like?" "Okay." The girl ran off. They were alone in the kitchen. The silence was so thick that James could hear his own heart beating. "How much longer are you going to pretend?" he asked in Japanese. "I don't know what you're talking about," replied Emily, also in Japanese, but her voice trembled. "My wife hired an investigator. He's going to find out everything, one way or another. So why don't you tell me yourself? Who are you? How do you know these songs? Why did you come to work for us?" Emily leaned her hands on the sink, her back to him. "I met someone," she said finally, still with her back turned. 5 years ago, when I worked at the clinic, a patient. We became friends. She told me about her family, about a daughter she had but never really knew, about parents she loved but had run away from." James felt his legs weaken again. He held onto the chair. "Naomi," he whispered. "You met Naomi." Emily finally turned around, and her face was wet with tears. "She made me promise," she sobbed. "Made me promise that if anything happened to her, I would take care of Lily. that I would ensure the girl grew up happy, loved. She taught me everything. The songs, the language, how to make the paper cranes. We spent whole nights talking, and she would tell me stories from her childhood, show me photos she kept hidden. Where is she? James crossed the kitchen in 2 long strides, holding Lily by the shoulders. Where is my daughter? Lily averted her gaze, her whole body trembling. I can't. She made me swear. Where? He shook the young woman slightly, desperate. James! Catherine's voice cut through the air like a whip. She was standing in the kitchen doorway, her eyes wide with shock and anger. Let go of that young lady right now. James released Lily immediately, but couldn't bring himself to move away. Catherine approached, looking from one to the other. What's going on here, Lily? Are you all right? The young woman nodded, wiping her face. I'm sorry, Mrs. Catherine. We were just talking. Talking? Catherine looked at her husband. James, go to the office now. I'll talk to Lily alone. He hesitated, but the expression on Catherine's face left no room for argument. He left the kitchen but stayed outside, leaning against the wall, trying to listen. Catherine closed the door and sat at the table, motioning for Lily to do the same. Now you're going to tell me everything, she said, her voice firm but not hostile. And don't lie to me. I'm too old and have been through too much to be fooled. Lily took a deep breath, wiping away more tears. I met a woman 5 years ago, she began, at the clinic where I worked. She was there for chemical dependency and depression. She was in terrible shape when she arrived, but she gradually got better. We talked a lot. She liked me, trusted me. She told me about her family, about how she had run away from home after finding out she was adopted. Catherine closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. It was Naomi. It wasn't a question. She never told me her last name. Lily lied, but she told me about her parents, about how good they were to her, about how much she regretted leaving, and she told me about a daughter she had, a girl named Emily, who was being raised by her grandparents. And she asked you to come work for us. Catherine struggled to keep her voice controlled. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Not exactly, Lily wrung her hands. She made me promise that if anything happened, I would find the family and take care of Emily. She said she couldn't come back, that she was too ashamed, too hurt, but she wanted to make sure her daughter would be all right. And what happened? Asked Catherine, feeling a chill in her stomach. Why did you come now, 5 years later? Lily was silent for a long moment. She left the clinic after a year. She was better, or at least seemed to be. She gave me a hug, thanked me for everything, and left. I didn't hear from her for 4 years. Then 6 months ago I received a letter. A letter? Catherine leaned forward. Saying what? Saying that she was sick, that she wasn't going to get better, and asking me to keep my promise. Sick how? Catherine's voice was hoarse. She didn't specify, but she said she didn't want you to know, that she didn't want to cause more pain. She just asked me to make sure Emily would be happy. Catherine stood up abruptly, walking to the window. Outside, the waters of the Upper East Side shimmered under the afternoon sun. So many years searching for Naomi, hiring investigators, following leads that never went anywhere. And now this young woman appeared with answers, but also with more questions. Where is she? She asked, still with her back turned. I don't know, replied Lily. Truly. The letter had no return address. I tried to trace it through the post office, but I couldn't. There was only a P.O. box in Philadelphia. Do you still have that letter? Lily hesitated. I do, in my room. Go get it, ordered Catherine. When Emily left, Catherine opened the kitchen door. James was there as she had imagined, clearly having heard everything. Did you hear? She asked. He nodded yes without words. What are we going to do? Let's see this letter, said James, and we'll keep investigating. Michael needs to find out everything about Naomi's time at that clinic. Emily returned holding a yellowed envelope. She handed it to Catherine with trembling hands. The letter was short, handwritten in English. M, my dear friend, I hope this letter finds you well. I'm writing to ask you to keep that promise I made to you so long ago. I'm sick and there's nothing more the doctors can do. But I don't want my family to know. I've already caused too much pain. Just take care of Lily for me. Make her happy. Tell her stories. Sing the songs I taught you. Show her that the world can be beautiful despite everything. And if she ever asks about her mother, tell her that she loved her more than anything. Thank you for everything, my friend. Naomi. Catherine read the letter 3 times before passing it to James. When he finished reading, he was shaking so much he had to sit down. The handwriting, said Catherine, her voice breaking. It's hers. I recognize the way she makes the E. They stood there in silence, processing the information. Emily remained standing, clearly uncomfortable. How long did you work at that clinic? James finally asked. 3 years. And was Naomi there the whole time? No, she arrived in my 2nd year there. She stayed for a year and then left. How did she get there? Who brought her? Emily thought for a moment. She came herself. Arrived alone, saying she wanted to check in voluntarily. She was in a terrible state, too thin with marks on her arms, but she had money to pay for the treatment. From where? Catherine asked, confused. She had nothing when she left home. I don't know, admitted Emily. I never asked. I thought it was better not to bring it up. James stood up, starting to pace back and forth. You said she had a daughter. When Lily was born, Naomi was only 19. She had already been away from home for a year. Who was the father? She never told me, replied Emily. She only said that the relationship didn't work out, that the man didn't want to take responsibility for the child. When she found out she was pregnant, she was already involved with drugs. She tried to stop, managed to stay clean during the pregnancy. But after Lily was born, she had severe postpartum depression. She couldn't take care of the baby. That's when she brought the girl to you. Catherine remembered that day. The doorbell had rung late at night. When they opened the door, they found a baby basket on the floor, with a girl just 2 weeks old inside, and a note. Please take care of her. I can't. Naomi. They tried to find her, obviously, but Naomi had disappeared without a trace. And then, 3 years later, Sarah, the daughter they had raised after Naomi's departure, offered to legally adopt Lily. Sarah and her husband David couldn't have children, and they loved Lily from the first moment. For a few years, everything seemed perfect, until the accident. This letter, said James, holding the paper carefully. How long ago was it sent? 6 months, replied Emily. And you only came to work for us 3 months ago. Why? Emily lowered her eyes. Because I was afraid, she admitted. I didn't know if you would believe me, if you would let me stay close to Lily. I spent months researching you, trying to find the best way to get close. When I saw the ad looking for a nanny, I thought it was the sign I was waiting for. Did you lie on your resume? Asked Catherine, suspecting the answer. Not exactly, Emily hesitated, but I omitted things. I didn't mention the clinic where I met Naomi, for example. I only listed the later jobs. Catherine sighed, running her hands over her face. She was tired, confused, feeling suddenly old. At 68 years old, she had been through a lot in life, but nothing had prepared her for that. I need to think, she finally said. Emily, please go take care of Lily. Don't mention any of this to her. And you. She looked at James. Come with me. In the master bedroom, Catherine finally broke down. She sat on the bed and began to cry, deep sobs that seemed to come from some dark place inside her. James sat beside her, holding her, his own tears falling silently. 20 years, said Catherine between sobs. 20 years searching, torturing ourselves with the possibilities. And she was alive all that time. She had a daughter, fought against drugs, came to us to leave the baby, and we never knew. And now she might be... James couldn't finish. Sick, Catherine finished. She said she's sick, that there's nothing the doctors can do. James, what does this mean? He shook his head, not knowing what to say. They spent the rest of the night talking, going over every detail that Emily had told them, looking for inconsistencies, holes in the story. But the more they thought, the more the pieces fit together. The way Emily knew intimate details about Naomi, the songs, the origami, the way she cared for Lily with so much affection. The next day, James called Michael and asked him to focus the investigation on the clinic in upstate New York. He wanted records, staff names, anything that could confirm that Naomi had really been there. Meanwhile, life in the penthouse continued with an underlying tension. Emily took care of Lily as always, but now avoided being alone with James or Catherine. The girl didn't notice anything wrong, too happy in her little world. A week later, Michael returned with more information. "I managed to confirm," he said, sitting again in the living room. "A woman named Naomi Anderson was a patient at New Horizons Rehabilitation Center between March 2019 and February 2020. The records were hard to access, but a staff member who still works there helped me. Emily Wilson Harris really worked there during the same period." "Did you get any information about what happened to Naomi after she left?" asked James, leaning forward in his armchair. "Nothing official," Michael hesitated. "But I spoke with some staff members unofficially. They remember her. They say she left well, optimistic. But one of the nurses mentioned she had a persistent cough before she left. They thought it was just a lingering cold." Catherine and James exchanged worried looks. "A cough," repeated Catherine. "That was 5 years ago. And in the letter she says she's sick, that there's nothing the doctors can do." "Do you think that—" Michael didn't finish. "We don't know," said James quickly. "It could be anything. But we need to find her. Michael, I want you to use all available resources, hospitals, clinics, anywhere a woman named Naomi Anderson or any variation might be registered." "That will take time," warned the investigator. "And it will be expensive." "I don't care about the cost." James stood up. "Find my daughter." After Michael left, Catherine went to Emily's room. She knocked on the door and waited until the young woman answered. "We need to talk," said Catherine. Emily invited her in. The room was simple but organized. On the desk, Catherine noticed a photo. It was of 2 young women smiling at the camera. One of them was clearly Emily, a few years younger. The other had dark hair, deep-set eyes, but a smile that Catherine would recognize anywhere. "It's her," said Catherine, picking up the photo with trembling hands. "It's Naomi." Emily nodded yes. "It was taken at the clinic, a few months before she left. It was one of her good days." Catherine looked at the photo for a long time. Naomi was too thin, had deep dark circles under her eyes, but she was smiling, a genuine smile, from someone who still had hope. "Can I keep this?" asked Catherine, her voice choked up. "Of course," said Emily. "I have others." "Others?" Catherine looked at her, surprised. Emily went to the drawer and took out a small album. There were about 20 photos. Naomi in the rehabilitation center's garden. Naomi reading a book. Naomi making origami. Naomi hugging Emily. "She gave these to me before she left," explained Emily. "Said she wanted me to have memories of the good times we spent together." Catherine flipped through the album, tears streaming freely down her face. Seeing her daughter like this, alive, even if wounded, was both a relief and torture. "Were there other people at the center who were close to her?" asked Catherine. "Not many," replied Emily. "Naomi was reserved, but she had a therapist, Dr. Sarah, who helped her a lot, and one of the nurses, Ryan, was also kind to her." "Do you have contact with any of them?" "With Ryan, yes. We still talk from time to time." "Can you ask him if he knows anything? Where Naomi went? If she got in touch after leaving?" Emily promised she would. That night, she sent a message to Ryan. The reply came a few hours later. "Hi, Em. What a surprise to hear from you. About Naomi, yes, I remember her well. After she left, I never heard from her directly. But a colleague who worked elsewhere mentioned once that she had seen someone who looked like her in a hospital in Boston. I think it was about 2 years ago. But I'm not sure. Why do you want to know?" Emily showed the message to Catherine and James Anderson the next day. "Boston," said James. "It's too big. How will we search?" "Michael can start with the hospitals that treat—" Catherine stopped, not wanting to complete the thought. "Serious illnesses," James finished for her. "Yes, I'll call him now." The search took 3 weeks. Michael visited dozens of hospitals, talked to hundreds of people, and then, finally, he found something. Mercy Medical Center, he said, on the phone with James. A patient named Sarah Anderson Reynolds was admitted there 18 months ago. She's in the long-term care wing. Sarah, repeated James, feeling a tightness in his chest. She used our adoptive daughter's name. The physical description matches, continued Michael. Asian woman about 40 years old, dark hair, approximately 5'3" tall. But Mr. Anderson, I need to warn you about something. Her diagnosis is complicated. Tell me, demanded James. She's in palliative care. The prognosis isn't good. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. After a moment, James managed to speak. I want to see her. Tomorrow. Arrange everything. That night, James and Catherine discussed whether they should take Emily with them. She knows Naomi, argued Catherine. It might be comforting for her to see a familiar face. But what if it's too difficult for Emily, countered James. And Lily? Who will take care of her? They decided they would go alone first. If everything went well, Emily could visit her later. They asked Mrs. Miller, the housekeeper who had worked with them for 15 years, to stay with Lily and Emily. The plane ride to Boston seemed to last an eternity. James held Catherine's hand so tightly that she had to ask him to loosen his grip a little. When they finally arrived at the hospital at 3 in the afternoon on a sunny Thursday, both were trembling. Michael met them at the reception. I let them know you were coming, he said. The doctor in charge wants to speak with you first. Dr. Rebecca was a woman in her early 50s, with kind but tired eyes. She greeted them in her office. Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, she began. I understand you are Sarah's parents. Naomi, corrected James. That's her real name. The doctor nodded, consulting her papers. She registered as Sarah when she arrived here. She had no documents, so we accepted the name she gave us. About her condition, she hesitated. It's terminal. Lung cancer, advanced stage. When she arrived here 18 months ago, it was already very advanced. We did what we could, but the disease had already spread. How long? Catherine's voice was almost inaudible. Hard to say for sure, perhaps a few weeks, perhaps less. Catherine sobbed and James held her tight. Does she know you're coming? Asked the doctor. No, said James. We didn't want to tell her until we were sure. Then you need to prepare yourselves, said the doctor gently. She's very weak. She looks nothing like the person you must remember. And depending on how she reacts to the visit, it could be difficult for everyone. But nothing could have prepared them for what they saw when they entered the room. The woman in the bed was so thin, she looked like a skeleton covered in skin. Her hair, once long and dark, was now short and almost entirely white. Tubes came out of her arms, and an oxygen mask covered part of her face. But when she opened her eyes upon hearing the door, James recognized that gaze. It was Naomi. It was his daughter. Hello, she said, her voice weak but clear. You must be the new volunteers the nurse mentioned. Catherine and James stood frozen in the doorway. Naomi looked at them more closely, and her face paled even more, if that was possible. No, she whispered, trying to sit up. No, you can't be here. How did you find me? James was the first to move, approaching the bed. Naomi, he said, his voice breaking. My daughter. No, she turned her face away. Please go away. I didn't want you to see me like this. I didn't want... We know, said Catherine, approaching the other side of the bed. We know about the letter you sent to Emily. We know you asked her to take care of Lily. Naomi squeezed her eyes shut, tears streaming down her temples. Emily, she told you. I asked her not to tell. She had no choice, James said softly. We investigated. We found out about the clinic, about you being there. You shouldn't have come. Naomi opened her eyes, and there was so much pain in her gaze that Catherine had to hold on to James's arm to keep from falling. I did everything wrong. I abandoned you, used drugs, had a daughter I couldn't raise. And now I'm like this. I don't deserve for you to be here. You are our daughter, said Catherine, finally touching Naomi's hand. Always have been, always will be, no matter what happened. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. But I found out, said Naomi, almost in a whisper. When I was 17, I found out I was adopted, that you weren't my real parents, and I didn't know how to handle it. I thought I had to find out who I was, where I came from." "And did you?" James asked gently. Naomi let out a bitter laugh that turned into a cough. When she stopped, she said, "I found out it doesn't matter. I found out you were always my real parents, that blood means nothing compared to love. But I found out too late. I had already hurt you, already ruined my life." "It's never too late," said Catherine, squeezing her hand. "We're here now, and we'll stay here for as long as you want." Naomi looked from one to the other, as if seeing ghosts. "Lily," she said finally. "How is she?" "Beautiful," James replied, taking his phone from his pocket. He showed a recent photo. "Smart, funny. She looks a lot like you." Naomi looked at the photo with a mixture of love and sadness. "Is she happy? Is Emily taking good care of her?" "Very well," Catherine assured her. "Lily adores Emily. For the first time since Sarah and David left, she's genuinely happy." "Sarah," Naomi whispered. "I used her name here, my sister. She was always so good, so perfect, everything I couldn't be." "Sarah loved you," said James. "She always spoke of you, always hoped you'd return. When she adopted Lily, she said it was a way of caring for a part of you." Naomi began to cry for real then, sobs shaking her fragile body. Catherine climbed carefully onto the bed and hugged her daughter, rocking her like she did when Naomi was little and had nightmares. James sat on the other side, stroking his daughter's white hair. They stayed like that for a long time, the three of them together for the first time in 20 years, crying for all they had lost, all they still had. When Naomi calmed down, she wanted to know everything: how they found Emily, how they learned about her, how Lily's life was. James and Catherine told everything, leaving nothing out. "Emily is a good person," said Naomi finally. "The best friend I ever had. When we were at the clinic, I was in a very dark place. I wanted, well, what I wanted doesn't matter anymore, but she saved me. Made me see there were still reasons to go on, made me remember you and Lily." "Why didn't you come back?" asked Catherine. "When you left the clinic, why didn't you look for us?" Naomi sighed, a tired sound. "Shame. Fear. I thought I had ruined everything beyond repair, and then I started having health problems. At first I thought it was just a cold, but the cough wouldn't go away. When I finally saw a doctor, it was too late." "You could have called us," said James. "At any time, in any situation. We would have helped." "I know," Naomi admitted. "But I couldn't. I had so much pride, so much anger at myself. I thought it would be easier to just disappear, that you'd be better off without me." "Never," said Catherine fiercely. "We were never better off. Every day without you was torture. Every birthday, every Christmas, there was always an empty space at the table, a void nothing could fill." Naomi squeezed Catherine's hand. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "We are too," said James. "I'm sorry we didn't realize you knew about the adoption. I'm sorry we never talked about it, that we let it become a secret that drove us apart." "It wasn't your fault," Naomi shook her head. "It was mine. I was young, confused. I thought finding out about my birth parents would give me some kind of identity, some meaning, but I only felt more lost." "Did you ever find them?" asked Catherine. "No," replied Naomi. "I tried for a while, but I couldn't get any information, and eventually I realized it didn't matter. You were my parents, you always were." They spent the rest of the afternoon talking. Naomi wanted to know about James's business, about Catherine's friends, about how the house on the Upper East Side was. They told her about the renovations they'd done, how they turned Naomi's room into Lily's room, how life went on despite her absence. When it started getting dark, a nurse came in to check Naomi's vital signs. She looked surprised to see 2 people in the bed with the patient, but said nothing when she saw how peaceful everyone seemed. "You need to rest," the nurse said gently. "Mrs. Anderson needs to take her medicine and get some sleep." James and Catherine reluctantly got up. "We'll come back tomorrow," promised James, "and every day after that. "And Emily?" asked Naomi. "Does she know you found me?" "Not yet," said Catherine. "We wanted to talk to you first. Do you want us to bring her?" Naomi thought for a moment. "Yes, I want to see her, and—" She hesitated. "I want you to tell me more about Lily, but I don't know if I'm ready to see her. Not like this." "You don't have to decide now," James assured her. "Let's take everything at your own pace." They kissed Naomi on the forehead, one on each side, and left the room. In the hallway, both had to lean against the wall, emotionally and physically drained. "She's so fragile," said Catherine, wiping away tears. "Our girl is so sick, but she's alive," said James, trying to stay positive. "And now we can be with her, we can do something for her." They returned to New York City that night, but it was a silent journey, both lost in their own thoughts, processing everything that had happened. When they arrived at the penthouse, it was past midnight. Emily was still awake, waiting in the living room. "So?" she asked, quickly standing up when she saw them. "Was it her?" Catherine nodded yes, and Emily let out a sob of relief. "How is she?" "Very sick," said James. "But alive. And she wants to see you." Emily covered her face with her hands, crying. "I was so scared," she admitted, afraid that it was too late, that she had already— She couldn't finish. "She's holding on strong," said Catherine, "and seeing us seemed to give her some strength. I think seeing you will help even more." They planned to return to Boston over the weekend, this time bringing Emily. Mrs. Miller would stay with Lily, who fortunately wasn't too bothered by her grandparents' short absences. On Saturday morning, the three boarded the flight to Boston. Emily was visibly nervous, wringing her hands the whole time. "What if she's worse?" she asked. What if it's the last time I see her?" "Then we make every second count," said Catherine, taking the young woman's hand. "We live each moment as if it's a gift, because it is." When they arrived at the hospital, Naomi was awake and seemed a bit more alert than during the previous visit. But when Emily entered the room, her face lit up in a way James and Catherine hadn't seen since they found her. "Em," she whispered, reaching out her arms. Emily rushed to the bed and hugged her friend carefully, as if she were made of glass. "You're here," said Emily, crying. "You're really here." "You told them," said Naomi, but there was no anger in her voice. "You disobeyed my orders." "I had to tell." Emily pulled back to look into her friend's eyes. "They deserve to know, and you deserve to have them here." "I know," admitted Naomi, "and I'm glad you told. Happier than I thought I'd be." They spent the morning together, all four of them. Emily told stories about Lily, about the funny things the girl said, about how she was learning to read, about how she loved to draw. Naomi listened to everything attentively, asking questions, wanting to know every detail. "Does she ask about her mother sometimes?" Naomi finally asked. "She does," Emily answered honestly, "especially at night before bed. I tell her that her mother was very special, that she loved her more than anything in the world." "And it's true," said Naomi, tears streaming. "I love that girl more than I ever thought it was possible to love anyone, even though I never really took care of her, even though I failed so much as a mother." "You didn't fail," said James. "You did the best you could under the circumstances. And you made sure Lily stayed with people who love her. That's not failing." They had lunch together in the room, hospital food that no one really ate but pretended to enjoy. In the afternoon, Naomi started to get tired, so they decided to let her rest. "Will you come back tomorrow?" she asked, holding Catherine's hand. "We're not leaving until tomorrow night," assured Catherine. "We're staying at a hotel nearby. We'll be back in the morning." In the following days, they established a routine. James and Catherine stayed in Boston from Monday to Thursday, returning to New York City for the weekend to spend time with Lily. Emily stayed with the girl during the week and went to Boston on weekends. It was exhausting emotionally, but also precious. Naomi was growing weaker each day, but also more at peace. She spoke with a lawyer about her final wishes, asking James and Catherine to make sure Lily grew up knowing who her biological mother was, knowing her story. "But I want her to know the truth," said Naomi, in one of the most difficult conversations. that I fought my demons and lost sometimes, that I made mistakes, but that I never stopped loving her. One afternoon, 3 weeks after they reunited with Naomi, she asked to see pictures of Lily growing up. James had hundreds on his phone. They showed everything. Lily as a baby, Lily taking her first steps, Lily on her first day of school, Lily blowing out candles on each birthday. Naomi looked at each photo attentively, memorizing every detail. "She's perfect," she said finally. "Even without me, she grew up perfect." "She grew up loved," corrected Catherine. "And part of that love came from you. You brought her into the world, made sure she stayed safe." But there was a question hanging in the air, a decision that needed to be made. Lily still didn't know her biological mother was alive. Should they tell her? Should they bring her to meet Naomi? It was Naomi herself who brought up the subject. "I want to meet her," she said on a Thursday morning, "before it's too late. I want to look into my daughter's eyes at least once." Catherine and James discussed at length how to do this. Lily was only 5 years old. How to explain to her that the mother she thought had left was actually in a hospital, very sick. They decided to be honest but gentle. That weekend they sat with Lily in the penthouse living room. "Princess," began Catherine with the girl on her lap, "we need to talk about something important." Lily looked at her grandmother with her big dark eyes. "Am I in trouble?" No, James assured quickly. "Nothing like that. But we have news about your mother." Lily grew very quiet. "Did she come back?" "In a way," said Catherine. "We found her. But she's sick, in a hospital in Boston." "Will she get better?" asked Lily with a child's simplicity. Catherine swallowed hard. "We don't know, sweetie. She's very sick, but she really wants to meet you, really wants to see you." Lily thought for a long moment. "Does she still love me, even though she left?" "She loves you more than anything in the world," said James, his voice hoarse. "She always loved you. She had to leave because she was sick too, in a different way. But she never stopped loving you." "Then I want to see her," decided Lily. "When can we go?" They prepared everything carefully. They spoke with Dr. Rebecca, who helped prepare Naomi for the visit. They also spoke with a child psychologist who gave guidance on how to conduct the meeting. The following Saturday, they took Lily to Boston. During the flight, the girl was quiet, thoughtful. Emily went along, holding her hand. "Your mother is really cool," said Emily. "She's kind and funny and very brave." "How do you know?" asked Lily. "Because we're friends," explained Emily. "We were friends for a long time." "And will she like me?" "She already likes you," assured Emily. "She's loved you since before you were born." At the hospital, they had Lily wash her hands and put a mask on her, more as a precaution than a necessity. When they opened the door to the room, Naomi was sitting in bed, her hair combed, wearing a clean hospital gown. She had tried to make herself look as presentable as possible. Lily entered slowly, looking at the woman in bed with curiosity and a little fear. Naomi had tears streaming down her face before she even said anything. "Hello, Lily," she said, her voice trembling. "You've grown so much." Lily moved a little closer. "Are you my mother?" "I am," confirmed Naomi. "I'm your biological mother, but I know you've had other mothers too, the Sarah who raised you. And there's Catherine who takes care of you now, and Em who loves you like a mother too. So I have many mothers," asked Lily, processing the information the way only children can. "You do," said Naomi, smiling through her tears. "You are very lucky, very loved." Lily thought for a moment, then climbed onto the bed and sat near Naomi. "Can you tell me a story?" "Em said you tell very good stories." Naomi looked at Emily, who nodded encouragingly. Then she hugged Lily carefully and began to tell a story about a princess who got lost but found her way back home. It was a simple story, but Lily listened attentively, leaning on Naomi's shoulder. James, Catherine, and Emily watched from the armchair nearby, all crying silently. Seeing Naomi and Lily together like that, after everything, was both beautiful and devastating. They spent the whole day at the hospital. Lily showed Naomi her drawings, talked about school, about her friends. Naomi listened to everything, asking questions, laughing at the right times, amazed by every detail about her daughter. When it was time to leave, Lily didn't want to. "Can I come back?" she asked. "You can," promised Naomi. "Whenever you want. And will you get better and come live with us?" The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, Naomi said, "I don't know if I'll get better, my love. I'm very sick. But even if I don't, I'll always love you, okay? I'll always be watching over you." Lily hugged Naomi tightly. "I love you too," she said, "even though I don't really know you yet." It was the sweetest and saddest thing anyone there had ever heard. In the following weeks, they visited Naomi whenever possible. Lily got used to the trips, to the hospital, to seeing her mother growing weaker. She seemed to understand, in the way children sometimes understand things that adults struggle to accept, that time was precious. One day Naomi asked to be alone with James. "Father," she said, using that word for the first time in 20 years, "I need to ask you something." "Anything," he said, holding her hand. "When I'm gone, I want you to promise that you'll tell Lily the truth, the whole truth. About the adoption, about my struggles, about everything. I don't want her to grow up with secrets like I did." "I promise," said James, "but let's do it together, while you're still here. Let's tell the stories, make the albums, record everything you want her to know." And that's what they did. They recorded videos of Naomi telling stories, singing lullabies, giving advice for Lily as she grows up. They made photo albums, wrote letters. Naomi wanted everything recorded. "I want her to know I was imperfect," said Naomi while recording, "that I made mistakes, but that I learned from them. I want her to know it's okay to fail, as long as we keep trying." They also had sessions where they just talked, Naomi and Lily, sometimes about deep things, sometimes about silly things. Lily talked about her dreams, about wanting to be a veterinarian when she grows up. Naomi listened to everything so attentively, memorizing every word. One afternoon, Catherine and Naomi were alone while the others went to lunch. "Thank you," said Naomi suddenly. "For what?" asked Catherine. "For adopting me, for loving me even when I didn't deserve it, for raising Sarah to be such a wonderful person that she wanted to adopt my daughter, for giving Lily a home full of love when I couldn't." Catherine squeezed Naomi's hand. "You always deserved love. Always. And I'm grateful every day for having you as a daughter, no matter for how long." "Take care of Lily for me," asked Naomi. "And when she gets older, tell the good stories too, not just the mistakes. Tell about when I was little and loved to dance in the rain, about how I made you laugh with my impressions, about the good times." "I'll tell," promised Catherine. "I'll tell you everything." Time passed too fast and too slow at the same time. Every day with Naomi was a gift, but also brought them closer to the inevitable. On a Tuesday night, James was alone in the room with Naomi when she said, "Dad, I'm tired." "I know, my daughter." He held her hand. "No, I'm ready. I've made peace with you, met my daughter, said everything I needed to say. I'm ready to rest." James fought back tears. "We're not ready to let you go." "I know," she said gently. "But it's not about being ready. It's about accepting what we can't change." That week, Naomi's condition worsened rapidly. Dr. Rebecca called the family and explained it was a matter of days, maybe hours. Everyone gathered in the room, James, Catherine, Emily, and after much discussion, Lily too. The girl deserved to say goodbye. Naomi was conscious, but very weak. She could barely speak. But when Lily approached the bed, she found the strength to smile. "My princess," she whispered. "Hi, Mummy," said Lily, climbing onto the bed carefully. Naomi hugged her, using all the remaining strength she had. "Be happy," she said. "Promise me. Be happy. Be kind. Be yourself." "I promise," said Lily, tears streaming down her small face. Catherine and James approached from one side, Emily from the other. They formed a circle around Naomi and Lily, all touching, all connected. "Thank you," said Naomi, looking at each of them. "Thank you for loving me even when I didn't know how to love myself. Thank you for never giving up on me." "We never gave up," said James. "We never will." Naomi closed her eyes, still hugging Lily, surrounded by everyone she loved. "I'm going to sleep now," she whispered, "but I'll always be with you. Always." She fell asleep in that embrace, and in the early hours of the next morning, surrounded by her family, Naomi passed away peacefully. The funeral was small, just family and close friends, but it was full of love. They shared stories about Naomi, the good and the difficult ones. They sang the songs she loved. Lily read a letter she had written, speaking about the mother she had known for such a short time, but would love forever. Emily stayed with the Anderson family, not as a nanny but as part of the family. She had been the bridge that reconnected them, the friend Naomi needed, the sister Lily gained. In the following months, they worked through the grief together. They watched the videos Naomi had recorded, read her letters, learned her favorite recipes she had dictated for Emily to write down. Lily, with the resilience of children, processed the loss in her own way. She had difficult days, of course, but also had days where she laughed and played like any 5-year-old. She made paper crane origami as her mother had taught Emily and hung them around the house. "They're for bringing good luck," she explained, "so our family will always stay together." 1 year later, on a sunny Saturday afternoon, James, Catherine, Emily and Lily visited Naomi's grave. They brought fresh flowers, and Lily brought an origami she had made especially. "Look, Mommy," she said, placing the paper crane on the headstone. "I made this one all by myself. It's almost perfect." "She would be proud," said Catherine, stroking her granddaughter's hair. "I know," said Lily, with the simple certainty of childhood. "Because she told me, remember, in the video. She said she'd be proud of me no matter what." Back at the penthouse in Upper East Side, they sat together on the balcony, looking at the sea. Lily was colouring, Emily was reading a book, Catherine was knitting, and James simply watched his family. They had lost so much time, been through so much pain. But in the end, love had brought them back. The love of a daughter for her parents, of parents for their daughter, of a mother for her child, of one friend for another. "You know," Catherine said suddenly, "I think Naomi was right about one thing." "What?" asked James. "That family isn't about blood, it's about love, about choice, about being present." Emily looked up from her book, smiling. "She would say we're being sappy." "She would," agreed James, laughing, "but she would agree too." Lily put down her coloured pencils and stood up, hugging each of them in turn. "I love you," she said. "We love you too," they replied in unison. And in that moment, watching the sunset over the Upper East Side, surrounded by love and acceptance, they felt Naomi's presence with them. Not in a scary way, but in a comforting way. Like a gentle breeze, like the memory of a song, like the promise that love never truly dies. They continued building their lives together. James began teaching Lily about Japan, about her heritage, about the traditions. Catherine told stories about when Naomi was little, keeping the memory alive. Emily was studying education, planning to open a small school where she could help other children the way she helped Lily. And Lily grew up, surrounded by love, knowing her full story, the beautiful parts and the difficult ones. She knew she had a biological mother who fought her demons and didn't always win, but who loved her enough to make sure she would be safe. She had an adoptive mother, Sarah, who loved her as her own before she passed. She had grandparents who moved heaven and earth to find their lost daughter. And she had Emily, who was friend, sister, mentor, all at once. One day when Lily was 7, she asked, "Grandpa, do you think Mama Naomi would have been happy with who I'm becoming?" James knelt in front of her, holding her little hands. "She wouldn't just be happy, my flower. She would be overjoyed. You are exactly everything she hoped you'd be. Kind, strong, full of love." "And the sad part?" asked Lily. "When I get sad thinking about her?" "The sad part is important too," said Catherine, joining them, "because it shows you loved, and love, even when it hurts, is always something beautiful." Lily thought about that, then nodded. "So, it's okay to be sad sometimes?" "It's completely okay," assured Emily. "Your mother got sad sometimes too, but she always found reasons to smile again. And you do the same thing." They spent that evening making origami together, each telling a story about Naomi. Some stories made them laugh, others made them cry, but all were important. All were part of who Naomi was, of who they were now. When they put Lily to bed, she asked Emily to sing the Japanese lullaby. "The one Mama Naomi taught you." Emily sang, her soft voice filling the room. James and Catherine stood in the doorway listening, remembering when they sang the same song to Naomi all those years ago. "We did it," whispered Catherine. "Did what?" asked James. "Broke the cycle. Naomi grew up with secrets, with things unspoken. Lily is growing up with truth, with open love." James hugged his wife. "Naomi gave us that gift. She showed us what not to do, but also showed us it's never too late to make things right." Years passed. Lily grew up and became an incredible young woman. She studied veterinary medicine as she had always dreamed. She had Naomi's dark hair, but Catherine's open smile. She had James's determination and Emily's kindness. On her 18th birthday, the family gathered on the rooftop for a small party. Mrs. Miller had made Lily's favorite cake, and Mr. Thomas told embarrassing stories from when she was little. Emily, now 41, ran her own school and had helped dozens of children over the years. Catherine, at 81, was still vibrant and active, tending to her orchid garden on the balcony. James, at 86, had officially retired, but still consulted occasionally for the company. After the guests had left, the four of them sat on the porch as they did every important evening. "Remember when we first met?" asked Lily. "When Em came to work here?" "How could we forget?" said James Anderson. "That's when everything changed." "I was so scared," admitted Emily. "I was so afraid of messing up, of not being able to keep my promise to Naomi." "But you did it," said Catherine. "You did more than she asked. Not only did you take care of Lily, but you brought our family back." Lily looked at each of them. "Do you know what Mommy Naomi told me in the video she recorded for when I turned 18? They all looked at her curiously. Naomi had recorded several videos for important milestones in Lily's life, sealed with instructions to be opened on specific dates. "She said," Lily continued, her voice choked, "that the greatest lesson she learned was that family is who is there when you need them. That love isn't perfection, it's presence. And that she hopes I will never be afraid to ask for help, to admit when I'm struggling, to let people love me." "She learned that too late for herself," James Anderson said softly. "But she didn't want you to make the same mistake." "And I won't," promised Lily, "because you taught me. All of you together showed me what a real family is." Catherine wiped away tears. "Your mother would be so proud of the woman you've become." "I know," said Lily, "because you always told me that. You never let me forget that she loved me, that she was imperfect but tried, that she did the best she could." "And that's the greatest gift we could give you," said Emily. "The whole truth, without embellishment, but also without shame." They stayed there until late at night, talking, laughing, remembering. They talked about Naomi, about Sarah, about everyone they had loved and lost. But they also talked about the future, about Lily's dreams, about Emily's plans to expand the school, about the new greenhouse Catherine wanted to build. When they finally went to sleep, James Anderson stayed a little longer on the porch. He looked at the starry sky and whispered, "Thank you, Naomi, for giving us Lily, for trusting us, for coming back, even if for such a short time. You gave us the chance to fix things, to be the family we should have been from the start." A gentle breeze passed, swaying the paper cranes that Lily still hung around the house. James Anderson smiled. "Rest in peace, my daughter. We're taking good care of everything here." And he knew, deep in his heart, that Naomi was finally at peace, that she could rest knowing that her daughter was loved, protected, happy. In the years that followed, the family continued to grow and change. Lily graduated as a veterinarian and opened her own clinic. She met someone special, a music teacher named Matthew, who loved the way she talked about her family, about her 4 mothers, about all the love she received. When Lily got married at 25, she had 4 empty chairs in the front row, one for Sarah, one for David, one for Naomi, and one symbolic for all those who had loved and departed. But she also had 3 chairs occupied by the most important people, James Anderson, Catherine, and Emily. In her speech, Lily talked about family, about love, about second chances. "My family is proof that it's never too late to start over," she said, looking at the guests. "That love can heal even the deepest wounds. That family isn't defined by blood, but by choice, by presence, by never giving up on each other." When she had her first daughter, Lily named her Naomi Catherine Emily, a name that honored all the strong women who shaped her life. James Anderson held his great-granddaughter for the first time at 92. His hands trembled, not from age, but from emotion. "She looks like her mother," he said to Lily. "Which one?" asked Lily, smiling. "With all of them," he replied. "With all who loved you." Catherine, at 88, sang lullabies to little Naomi, the same ones she sang to the original Naomi, the same ones Emily sang to Lily. And so the cycle continued, not of pain and secrets, but of love and truth. Emily, seeing all this, sometimes wondered how it would have been if she had never met Naomi at that clinic, if she had never promised to take care of Lily. Her life would have been completely different, probably simpler, certainly less painful. But when she looked at Lily with her daughter, when she saw James and Catherine smiling despite their age, when she saw the family she had become part of, she knew she wouldn't change a thing. Because that was her family too, not by blood, not by accident, but by choice. The same choice she made every day, to remain present, to keep loving, to honor the promise she made to a friend so many years ago. On a Sunday afternoon, when little Naomi was 3 years old, the whole family was gathered for lunch. The girl ran through the house laughing, while James tried to teach her how to make origami. "Look, Grandpa." She showed a crooked paper crane. "I made it." "It's perfect," he said, and it was true, because it was made with love, with dedication, with joy. Lily watched from the kitchen, helping Catherine with dessert. Emily was in the living room, talking with Matthew about school. It was a common, domestic, normal scene, but it was also extraordinary. It was the result of years of struggle, of pain overcome, of love that persisted despite everything. "You know," Lily said to Catherine, "sometimes I still talk to my mother, to Naomi. I tell her about my life, about little Naomi, about everything." "And what do you think she would say?" asked Catherine, stirring the cake batter. "I think she would say thank you," replied Lily. "Thank you for not letting the pain destroy us, for turning our tragedy into something beautiful." "She would indeed say that," agreed Catherine. "And she would say that she loves you, that she always loved you." "I know," said Lily, smiling through her tears. "I always knew." And it was true, even in the hardest moments, even when she missed the mother she barely knew, Lily always knew she was loved, because James and Catherine ensured it, because Emily ensured it, because Naomi, even in death, ensured it through all the letters, videos, messages she left behind. Naomi's love didn't die with her. It continued to live in Lily, in little Naomi, in every paper crane hung around the house, in every lullaby sung, in every story told. When James passed away peacefully at 95, he was surrounded by his family. Lily held one of his hands, Catherine the other. Emily was at the foot of the bed, and little Naomi, now 6 years old, was sitting beside her great-grandmother. His last words were, "Naomi, I'm coming. I'll take care of our girl up there while you take care of her down here." And Catherine, even through her tears, smiled. "Tell her we kept our promise, that Lily grew up happy." "She knows," said James, closing his eyes for the last time. She always knew. James's funeral was large. He had touched so many lives, built so much, loved so much. But the most touching moment was when Lily read the letter he left for her. "My dear Lily, when you were born, I thought I would never recover from losing Naomi. But you gave me a reason to go on. You showed me that love can rise from the ashes of loss. That family is what we build, not just what we inherit. Take care of your grandmother for me. Take care of Emily, who was so important to all of us. And tell your daughter stories about all the mothers you had, about all the love you received. Because that love is your legacy, your most valuable inheritance." Catherine lived 5 more years after James. At 93, she was still lucid, active, involved in the family's life. She saw little Naomi enter school, saw Lily expand her clinic, saw Emily retire with honors for all the work she did with underprivileged children. On her last night, surrounded by Lily and Emily, she said, "Don't be sad. I've had a long life full of love. I lived to see 4 generations of our family. That's more than many achieve." "We'll miss you," said Lily, holding her hand. "I know," said Catherine softly. "But I'll be with James, with Naomi, with Sarah. We'll all be together again, and we'll be watching over you always." After Catherine passed away, Lily found an envelope addressed to her on her grandmother's desk. Inside was a letter. "My dear granddaughter, when Naomi came back into our lives, even if for such a short time, I learned something fundamental. I learned that it's never too late to forgive, to love, to start over. I learned that the time we have doesn't matter as much as what we do with that time. Naomi had 40 years, Sarah had only 28, James had 95. I will have 93. Some of us have more time than others, but what matters is how we use that time. You are using your time well, my dear, loving deeply, forgiving quickly, living with purpose. Keep it up. And when your time comes, many years from now, I hope you can look back without regrets, knowing that you loved and were loved, that you made a difference, that you mattered. With all my love, Grandma Catherine." Lily read the letter to Emily, both of them crying. "She was right about everything," said Emily. "About love, about time, about what really matters." "She was," agreed Lily. "And now it's our responsibility to pass that on, to little Naomi, to the next generations." And that's what they did. Lily raised little Naomi the same way she was raised, with unconditional love, with truth, with the wisdom of knowing that family is a choice we make every day. Emily continued to be an integral part of the family. She was the aunt who was always present, who told the best stories, who kept all the secrets, who offered wise advice. When Emily turned 70, the family threw a surprise party for her. Lifelong friends, former students from her school, all came to celebrate. But the most touching moment was when Lily presented a special gift, a photo album and letters showing Emily's journey from when she met Naomi at the clinic to the present. "You changed our lives," said Lily during the speech. "Not only did you keep a promise to a friend, you became our family, our anchor, our safe harbor. And I want you to know that Naomi would have been so proud of you." Emily cried as she flipped through the album, seeing pictures of her with baby Lily, with Lily growing up, with little Naomi being born, all the important moments they shared. "I just did what I promised," she said, her voice choked. "You did much more than that," corrected Lily. "You loved when it was hard. You stayed when you could have left. You chose to be family when no one expected that from you." It was at that moment that little Naomi, now 15, approached. "Aunt Em," she said, "I want you to know that when I grow up, I want to be like you." "Like me?" asked Emily, surprised. "Yes," the girl smiled. "Someone who keeps promises. Someone who loves without expecting anything in return. Someone who transforms lives just by being present." Emily hugged the girl, too moved for words. That night, after everyone had left, Emily stayed alone in her apartment, looking at old photos of Naomi. So much time had passed, but she still missed her friend. "I did it, Naomi," she whispered to the photo. "I took care of Lily as I promised. She grew up strong, kind, full of love, and now she's raising her own daughter the same way. Your granddaughter will grow up knowing about you, about your struggle, about your love." And in that silence, Emily felt a deep peace, because she knew she had made a difference, that her life had purpose and meaning. The years kept passing. Little Naomi grew up and became a psychologist, specializing in helping families in difficult situations. She said she was inspired by her own family's story, by how they turned pain into healing, loss into love. When she was 23, young Naomi wrote a book about her family. Not to publish, just to preserve the stories, the lessons, the legacy. "It's for my children," she explained to Lily, "and for their children. I want all future generations to know where we came from, what we overcame, how much love exists in our story." Lily read the manuscript and cried. Her daughter had perfectly captured the essence of everything: the pain of the original Naomi, the unconditional love of James and Catherine, the loyalty of Emily, the strength of Sarah, all the threads that wove the tapestry of their family. "It's perfect," said Lily. "Your great-grandmother Naomi would be so proud." "Do you think she knows?" asked young Naomi. "Where she is, do you think she knows we haven't forgotten her?" "I'm sure she does," replied Lily. "Because love doesn't die. It may change form, but it never disappears." And it was true. Naomi's love was in every decision Lily made, in every value she passed on to her daughter. James's love was in how the family kept Japanese traditions alive. Catherine's love was in the gardens Lily cultivated, in the recipes she cooked. Emily's love was in her constant presence, in her unwavering dedication. Emily passed away at 78, peacefully, in her sleep. When Lily received the news, she felt as if a part of her had gone too. But at the funeral, while sharing stories about Emily, Lily realized something. Emily had lived an extraordinary life, not by doing grand things, but by doing the right things, by keeping a promise, by loving unconditionally, by choosing family above all. Young Naomi read a letter that Emily had left for her. "My dear Naomi, I met you when you were just a baby in the videos your great-grandmother Naomi recorded for me. But I loved you from the first moment. You carry a powerful name, the name of 3 strong women who came before you. Your great-grandmother Naomi, who fought her demons and loved with all she had. Your great-grandmother Catherine, who never gave up on her family. And me, humbly, who tried to honor the promise I made. Live your life with courage, my dear. Love deeply. Forgive quickly. And never underestimate the power of being present for the people you love. It's the greatest thing we can offer each other. Our presence, our attention, our time. With all my love, Aunt Em." Years later, when young Naomi had her own children, she took them to visit the graves of all who had passed. She told stories about each one, keeping the memory alive. "This is your great-great-grandmother Naomi," she said, pointing to the headstone. "She made mistakes, but she never stopped loving. She taught us that it's okay not to be perfect as long as we keep trying. This is your great-great-grandfather James and your great-great-grandmother Catherine. They taught us that family is who we choose and that love can overcome any distance. And this is Aunt Emily. She taught us that keeping a promise can change lives, that loyalty is a precious value, that presence is the greatest gift." Her children listened attentively, absorbing the stories, making them part of their own identity. Lily, now 72, watched her daughter teach the grandchildren about the family. She saw the next generation learning the lessons she had learned, passing on the legacy of love and resilience. "We're doing it right," said Matthew, her husband of so many years, holding her hand. "We are," agreed Lily, "and we will continue to do so, generation after generation, because that was the true miracle of their story. It wasn't finding Naomi after 20 years. It wasn't the reconciliation or the forgiveness. The true miracle was what they made of it, how they turned pain into purpose, loss into legacy, tragedy into triumph." End of story. And now, dear listeners, we'd like to know what you thought of this story. Do you believe that love can truly overcome anything? Leave your honest opinions in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share it with those you love. Thank you so much for your company.